it's Yenique. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast all as well. Thank you to my new listeners. Thank you to everyone. I really appreciate you. So, today I would be doing a story time, sort of telling you a story straight from my head, to you. And it will be coming alongside the other podcast kind of things that we've been having, and I'm looking to also doing collaborations with other people so the podcast will be more robust. However, I just like telling stories. I like talking, so basically it's just one of those things, and I hope you enjoy it. So I'll be titling this particular kind of episode story. So you would know what to expect when you see story before the in the description, so you know that this is a story time kind of thing. And so this particular story is going to come in two parts. It's going to be a two-part story time, because as you know, I don't like long podcasts, so that I don't get you bored and then disengaged in the middle of the whole thing. So I don't want it too long. Anyway, we'll just get right into it. The story for today is titled Mother at the Ramp Resort. Here's part one. The Ramp Resort set up in Lagos. It's a conservative / island kind of resort. So they have the resort part where there are the chalets, there are the fun parts, and then there's the wildlife conservative reserve part of the chalet of the resort. The island is connected to this wildlife reserve by a wooden bridge and by a ramp ahead. In the wildlife reserve as well, there are ramps moving around, because obviously you don't want to walk amongst the animals, although there are wooden bridges, but people just prefer to be safer by taking the ramp ahead. So they move from tree to tree with the ramps. They move from location to location. You can move from the wildlife reserve to the chalet part with the ramp as well. So the setup is a very peaceful place, home away from home, and then takes you out of the whole mess of town. No noise, everywhere is a little bit calmer, you're closer to nature and things like that. So that's the setup of where the story happens. And the couple that visited, Mr. and Mrs. Amma, the highlight of this story, visited the resort as sort of a place where they could get to meet each other again, get to start afresh and try to just sort out whatever issues they're currently having in their relationships and whatever issues they're trying to resolve in their relationships at the time. And so the husband just suggested that how about they go to this resort that has been well talked about for 5 days, leave the town, leave their repetitive kind of lifestyle, and just go here, relax, unwind, start afresh, and then see what happens from there. And so they visit the resort. They get to this resort on a Monday. They're both taking leave from work and then created time for this to happen. On getting to the resort, Mr. Amma is greeted familiarly by one of the cleaning staff, like, "Oh, welcome again, nice to see you again." And then he goes on saying, "I don't know this person, this seems to be a mistake." And then they just wave it off as probably it looks like one of the old customers or something like that, and so they just let that pass. And so they just let that pass, and that goes on, and they take them to their chalets. Mind you, in the chalets, they do not allow hotel staff to attend to anyone from past 6 p.m. because it is considered that if it's an home away from home experience, you should be able to relax and unwind with your family from that time. At least get some privacy, get some time to yourselves till the next morning. And so the only people you have around are night guards, which don't even roam around your particular chalets. They're just there in case you need something. And of course, security protocols have been explained to each guest, so you know what to do in case you need to urgently reach out to someone. But aside from reaching out, nobody would actually come to bug you in your rooms at that time. So the couple arrived. It's Monday morning. They had to go through all of the traffic to get there because it's quite a distance from town. And they're trying to just unwind, get used to the place, get to look around and all of that. And they've both not been there before. In quotes, they've both not been there before, and they get to just relax, go into their chalets. And then Ahmad says he and his wife, whose name is Bera, by the way, so it's Ahmad and Bera Amma, decide that okay, maybe they should just go around and see the whole vicinity and then know what they're dealing with. So first, before we get into them going to see the vicinity, let me just give you a background story on the couple. So Bera and Ahmad had been married for 3 years, and before getting married, they've been dating for 8 months. They met in the banking hall where Ahmad was one of the officers handling accounts. So she had been there to make a complaint. She was trying to book a flight, and for some reason she couldn't just get money out of her account, and that was really infuriating for her. So she visited the branch really angry, really upset, and then talking because she was obviously upset for good reasons. And Ahmad came up and tried to pacify her, and then that was how they met. They started dating, and that was it. There was always an uneven match, sort of. They were both good looking on equal terms. You can always say that. Both good looking on equal terms. Husband, tall, dark, handsome. Wife, everything you would just imagine a beautiful woman would look like. And then, however, when I say uneven, I mean that Bera had always been very successful. Very, very successful. Her career had always been booming. She's high up there. And Ahmad is, just a normal everyday guy who just earns middle level salary, who has a midlife, just everything is just basic and normal for him. And Bera is really up there. But their union was sweet. They were into each other, and it worked. Within 8 months they were married. So their life started. Anyway, so back to the resort. They decided to just look at the vicinity, see what they're dealing with, look at the ramps, take beautiful pictures, Instagram now, they have to post. So they go around, they do that. Visit the restaurant, the open restaurant, and just have lunch, before they start climbing the ramps, which Ahmad was telling Bera that he thinks it would be better for them to climb the next day, considering how stressful it was to get to the resort in the first place. And they had so many other fun things they could do. There was a canoe ride. That was, a very short canoe ride. It was something very, very picturesque, So they would really enjoy that, and he suggested they do that instead and then take the ramp ride tomorrow. So they decided to do that instead, took the canoe ride, took more pictures, had more food, got a little bit tipsy, and they were about to retire for the night when they were introduced to their night guard staff who would be guiding the chalets at night, that particular night. And so one of the night guards realized that he knows Bera. Bera kind of just recognized him, but for some reason they didn't just acknowledge each other's presence or acknowledge knowledge of each other, but they knew each other, and that was it. So they introduced them to the night staff, they went to bed, and that was it. So the end of day 1. Day 2 started on a good note. They were all dressed up. She was really dressed up in this ready to hike kind of outfit. She was wearing shorts, wearing her boots. Ahmad was also getting ready, and they were ready to just climb the ramp, do everything, And so they we're about to go out when Ahmad said, "Oh, how about to just do something else?" And then climb the ramp towards evening, kind of just climb the ramp towards like 4 or 5 thereabout, when it was getting a little bit darker, so that they'll become. He was feeling a little bit sick anyway, so he didn't think he was up to it that morning, or at least not around the time they wanted to go, which was around 10 a.m. 12 p.m. So he didn't want to do it around that time, so he wanted to get a little bit later before they did that. And so they went for other things. There's a little museum, so they went to the little museum, took pictures, went to the zoo part, saw the animals, the domesticated animals, the ones that can be in the zoo, not the ones in the wildlife resort kind of part, of the resort. So they just took pictures, did all of that, had lunch again, had very fancy lunch. And the night guard was sort of around and still seeing her, and then just said hello to them. "Oh, I was the one who was guarding your chalet last night," and that was it. And there was this maid who I mentioned recognized Ahmad from the beginning, and she was around too. Everyone was just there, and it was just like a really fun thing going on. And around 5 p.m. Ahmad says it's time to go climb the ramp, and he and Bera just went on without a guide, because it says it would be more fun if they just, as a couple, go into the wildlife themselves, sort of just enjoy the scenery. And the point of being there in the first place was for them to be closer to each other, to be able to have communication, and then be alone, sort of, because they had been seeing a therapist and they needed alone time. They needed time away from people, away from suggestive comments and everything. They just had to be alone. So they decided to take this ramp walk alone around 5 p.m. Anyway, so Anyway, so they go climb the ramp and then say bye-bye to the people in the restaurant, and people actually see them go up the sidewalk towards the ramp, and that's it. And at that time, because one, it's weekdays, people don't really come to the resort weekdays. People are there weekends. Two, it's towards evening, so there's not so many people on the walk parts, on the walkway towards the ramp, so you don't even get to meet a lot of people. A lot of people don't get to them actually walk away, so they just go off into the greenway. And of course there's enough security protocol, so they think that the resort owners don't have any issue with them going or taking a walk alone, because they feel that, oh, you'll be on the ramp, you'll be safe. And then there are also sidewalks there. There's like a wooden bridge where you could actually walk across. Anyway, about 2 hours later, around 7:30 p.m, Ahmad is calling frantically, calling on the phone, calling the security desk, calling the security desk number he had gotten upon their introduction to the resort. He's calling frantically, screaming, and he's really breathless at this time. And so they rush out to meet him. They meet him almost coming out of the ramp access. He's coming out and he's screaming and he's really frantic, and he's screaming that his wife had fallen off. And so everyone is like kind of worried, running back towards the direction he came from, trying to like see what had happened, trying to figure out how it happened, where's her body, and all of that. And so it turns out that Bera had fallen off the ramp around the swampy area, which means that she had fallen into crocodile-infested waters. And so the security guards, the lifeguards, people there are very experienced in this kind of thing, so they just try to pull her out. But it's too late, because from what they can see, she's falling in there for, from what they can see, at least more than 30 minutes for the crocodiles to have been able to do anything to her at all. It means that she's been there for like more than 10-20 minutes at least. And so she's all mangled up, but they bring her out still. They try to she's still breathing a little bit, by the time they bring her out, before they call the med team, the ambulance, she's dead anyway. And so they still take her to the hospital, try to like figure out what happened. And the husband, Ahmad, is really frantic, is really teary, is really going crazy because he's trying to make an understanding out of what just happened. Like, his wife just fell off the ramp in a resort in the middle of like nowhere, literally, and he's just crying. They're asking him questions, but he really can't answer because at that time he's devastated. He's really devastated. He doesn't know what to say. He's sad that his wife is gone, especially in this kind of horrible way. And so yeah, that's the story of day 2 at the Ramp Resort, Tuesday. And at the hospital, they of course tell him that his wife is dead and there's nothing they can do. She's pretty mangled up. And the resort owners, the resort managers, everyone is with them in the hospital, trying to like, put their own share, trying to like make sure, figure out what happened, like how did it happen, considering this happened on their property. And these people were guests, so they're all worried. Everyone is really worried. Everyone is, frantic. It's really a chaotic scene at that time at the hospital. And so they stay at the hospital for a couple of hours. Ahmad is calling his parents and our parents towards midnight, telling them what had happened, how this had happened. And those ones were saying they'll come over probably the next morning to see situation and then help in any way they can. And everyone is really worried. Everyone is really scared for Ahmad right now, that his wife had to die in this horrific way, especially with him witnessing the situation himself. So that's it. That's day 2. That's the end of day 2. Again, that's the end of day 2. So by Wednesday, the family is around. Everyone is going round and trying to figure out what happened and trying to like rally around Ahmad to be there for him, to support him, and to get the body for burial and every other thing that is needed at this time. So the whole situation is getting really messy, and everyone is just trying to like make sure that Ahmad is fine, because he's the remaining partner, obviously, and he's going to be devastated. And so while that is going on, the ramp staff, the people at the Ramp Resort, the owners and the managing directors, the lifeguards, everyone is having a meeting trying to figure out how this had happened. Their ramp was supposed to be solid. The whole system was supposed to have prevented against something like this happening, and this was going to be a very terrible thing for their signature. You could walk on the ramp all by yourself, unsupervised, because they've created a very solid system, a solid ramp. And how did this person fall off, especially at that particular spot where there are crocodile infested waters? And of course, the owner of the resort is not happy because this would affect her business, and she's wondering that how could you have created a ramp over the space? And they're like, oh, every other person had been walking through that part. Like, it's beautiful to see the crocodiles, it's exciting, it's dangerous, but it's fun for most of the customers, and this had never happened before. But of course, someone needs to take the blame, so everyone was trying to like push the blame around. Oh, it's your fault, you shouldn't have built a ramp over this place. Oh, it's you that didn't create a very good ramp. Or the lifeguards should have insisted on following them. A security officer should have insisted on being there at all times. And so they just go back and forth with the whole accusations and everything. And while this meeting is going on, of course, the night guards and the cleaners and everybody is not involved in this meeting because that's beyond their level. But they are gossiping amongst themselves, where the night guard that recognized Vera seems to have found his voice and can now say where he knew her. And he told one of the cleaners that while he was working at a clinic as a security guard on the mainland, in Yaba actually, there was a doctor who was working at the clinic as well, but at an apartment somewhere in the same building where the hospital was. and Bera was his patient. The doctor was a gynecologist. Bera was his patient, and Bera always visited him, not just in the clinic, but in this private apartment where the doctor had. And it wasn't such a long time ago, it was as recent as 6-7 months before then. And that's where he knew her, and that's the other job he does aside from the ramp resort night duty work. And so that's why he didn't say hi to her, because they both know where he knew her from, and he thought it would be hard to greet her in front of her husband, considering where he knew her from. And then one of the cleaners as well says she recognized Ahmad because Ahmad had been to the resort at least twice, probably under a different name, because she remembers that it wasn't called Ahmad then and it wasn't called Mr. Ahmad, but she had seen him twice, just coming to visit, and then probably during one night, and there was a particular time she remembers that I was just there for the ramp walk, and that was it. He didn't even stay over, and then she remembers that she wonders why he denied it when they met each other when he came in with his wife, and she was wondering, like, why didn't this guy acknowledge the fact that he has been here before, or was he up to something? It wasn't even with any girl, so why was he denying it? And then that was it. And then the night guard was saying, oh, he also knows Bera from another shady place. So the couple have a shady thing going on with them, but they couldn't figure out what it was. So in the other hand, the ramp managers and everyone is still doing this blame game, trying to send emails and then blame each other and trying to figure out how this happened, and of course doing damage control, because this kind of story must not get out into the press that this happened in their center. Okay, so by day 5, of course, by Friday and Saturday thereabout, the family are already getting used and comfortable, not comfortable, but getting used to the idea that Bera is gone, and they're planning a burial for her on the behest of Ahmad. He says that he thinks the burial should be taken quite immediately. There is no reason to wait, there is no reason for festivities, and it should be a quiet ceremony. So they decide to just go with the flow. He's the husband and it's the bereaved one here, so whatever he says just goes, and they're just trying to make him happy and as comfortable as is possible. So they bury Bera Ama the following Monday, in the presence of family, friends, church members, and that was it. So you get a part 2 shortly. In a couple of days, the part 2 will be out. Just let me know if you enjoy it. Tell me what you think is going to happen. Tell me what you think happened. Tell me how you think the story is going. And please tell me if you think that I'm a good storyteller. Thank you so much for listening.